So continue. So welcome all to the campaign office hour. Sorry if there were delays or challenges getting into the room. One of the links was wrong on the page, and we sincerely apologize if you got the wrong one. Hopefully, a few more people will be able to find us and join, and hopefully it'll all work out. This is the campaign office hour. This is a space that we're creating to connect and have conversations about content campaigns in the Wikimedia movement, hosted by the Wikimedia Foundation team. We want this to be kind of an open space, so we have a theme. This month is Wiki for Human Rights, but we're also creating space for other kinds of conversations. So if you have questions, need mentoring or support, this is the space to do it. The theme for this round is Wiki for Human Rights. I'll introduce that campaign in a few minutes. It's a partnership between UN Human Rights and our team, but we will have space towards the end for questions. We have a few people entering the room right now, so we will give them just one more moment while that happens. We will be recording the first part of the meeting where I present and talk. So if you don't want to be seen or hear your voice or whatever, you can say that to the Q&A session, which will not be recorded. But otherwise, feel comfortable asking questions or raising hands. Felix and Michelle and myself will be kind of manning the questions. I want to briefly introduce, so those of you who've been around campaigns for a while probably know Felix and I, working for the foundation on the campaigns team. But I also wanted to introduce two contractors we have helping us during the next 5-6 months on campaigns, Michelle Bachny and Venus Louis. Go ahead and say hi if you would like, Michelle.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle.
And which, where do we find you, or what communities are you from?
Okay. My name is Michelle. I'm originally from Syria. Now I'm living in France, and I'm active in the Arabic Wikipedia and Wikicommons and Wikidata. And I do a lot of things with Wikimedia Levant and with all of the Arabic community groups.
Cool. Thank you, Michelle. It's so great to have you on the team, and we'll invite him to talk a bit more later as we ask questions and talk about Wiki for Human Rights. And Venus, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, it's Venus, originally from Hong Kong, and live in Germany. So in general, I'm active on English Wikipedia and Chinese Wikipedia. At the same time, I do a lot of outreach here for the Wikimedia movement. So I'm very interested in education program and also like the GLAM project here. So that's me.
And Venus is going to be helping us with One Love, One Ref this cycle. So if you have questions or interested in that, she is available. Cool. So since we folks have been showing up, I want to introduce you to Wiki for Human Rights. So what is Wiki for Human Rights? There is a broad opportunity for knowledge about human rights in a public. And so the Wikimedia Foundation partnered with the UN Human Rights a few years ago through a former a memorandum of understanding to partner on sharing information about human rights in a global context. The first campaign we ran about 1.5 years ago with the help of Louisiana and many other community groups around the world, Louisiana from Wikimedia Argentina, that included 12 languages and 210 editors working on about 700 and some articles. As you all know, these aren't always precise, and we think that there's probably more that happened. But it had a pretty good reach. And the month following the campaign, we had about 9 million eyes on the Wikipedia articles that were edited. So this is quite important. And we are kind of relaunching this collaboration. We didn't do it last year for Human Rights Day because of timing and COVID and complexity, but we decided to do a series of small, or not small, focus on Wiki for Human Rights during 2021. We had a small challenge as part of One Lab One Ref as an experiment that we are still evaluating and learning from. The Wikigap challenge again this year is going to have some sponsorship from UN Human Rights. And so if you're interested in women human rights defenders, we invite you to join the Wikigap challenge this year. And Wikimedia Sweden is coordinating that. And then we saw an opportunity to grow something around Earth Day to match the theme of the Wikipedia's human communication theme that the foundation is doing this year for the 20th birthday around impacts of environmental issues. And so we reached out, knowing the success and knowing how many communities engaged in this topic. We both on Wiki activities, about 14 languages last time, and at least 8 off-Wiki activities, in addition to following on activities from Wikimedia Brazil and subsequent months and other communities. We were kind of excited to relaunch around a theme. UN Human Rights is interested in the topic right to a healthy environment. And so we are going to be encouraging communities to organize and support on this in a 2-part campaign. Like last time, we are going to encourage decentralized events like on-wiki editing events and off-wiki events, offline events, if it's possible in your COVID context. And we encourage you to use the grant team's event evaluation for COVID. But we're also going to be running a Wikigap challenge-like challenge that will be internationally focused and will not require a local organizing. This campaign it focus on human rights, and we want to remind everyone that human rights topics are complicated at the very least in all contexts, and in some contexts certain human rights topics are particularly challenging. So if you want to kind of think about the risk profile of this topic in your context, please pay attention to that. We don't want to encourage you to be working on a topic that does not make sense for your community. And if you are recruiting new editors or working with existing editors, you need to be thoughtful about what you focus on, because we don't want to endanger anyone. That being said, we think appropriate topics for this broad theme of right to a healthy environment could be topics like environmental defenders, so people who are advocating for the rights of various communities, or the right to a healthy environment more generally. Legal systems, treaties, or political actions that are responsive to the environment or other human rights topics, but are connected. For example, the right to water is a healthy environment, or the right to food are both healthy environment related topics, but could be also treated in a separate way. Communities advocating for the protection of their environment. So if you've been following the climate movement recently, environmental justice and climate justice topics are very central to how the movement is forming. So there are a lot of opportunities to cover who is advocating for what underrepresented communities. And then also the health and social consequences of communities not having access to a healthy environment. We are hopeful that this topic gives a really inviting space for communities to organize different subtopics that's appropriate. For example, the health or social consequences of communities denied access might allow you to say, expand articles about cities with unhealthy environments, or it might allow you to expand articles about mining or deforestation or whatever kind of environmental issues are appropriate in your context. We are encouraging decentralized events. And what do we mean by events? Most of the movement organizes editathons and workshops, and we are supportive of that. And if you need help, there's a really good guide on climate change and editathons that CDKN produced recently. But also we've seen a lot of these kinds of events happening in the last 6 to 12 months, including this Wiki for Climate editathon that happened in Ghana, a Philippines translation event, which actually is a really good example of a local community focusing on an environmental topic in an appropriate way. They really focused on the impacts of hurricanes on communities and how that is disruptive, hurricanes and monsoons. Wiki-Specific Drives. So last time during Wiki for Human Rights, we saw Wikimedia, the community in Macedonia, customize the campaign to cover basic human rights topics, not the broader theme about right to a healthy, or youth standing up their rights, because they realized they had huge gaps on basic human rights topics. But also French Wiktionary created a content drive for language and topics unique to them. We've also been seeing an emerging number of new kinds of editing events because of going online, because of COVID, like this week and a half long Wiki for Climate event. And these models are not the editathon where everyone sits down in one place, but they actually spend a lot more time doing multiple meetings, multiple rounds of training, and space for kind of different types of competition. And then expert conversations. So both in the climate space and in the human rights space, we've been seeing more communities reach out to experts to do a careful reading of Wikipedia articles or topic areas on Wikipedia. So in the bottom right is the WikiDroits program Wikimedia Switzerland ran with communities in southern France that invited immigrant rights experts to talk about what kinds of knowledge that migrants needed to defend their rights. Similarly, on the left, Scan, who's in the call, did a call with an expert to talk about the environmental rights considerations or environmental issues related to a river, the environmental social issues related to a river in Argentina. And by recording the call, got a careful reading of those issues and was able to improve the article quite a bit on topics that would not have otherwise been there. And then we ran a pilot activity at National Academy's Editathon in Washington, D.C. last year, where we pulled experts aside out of the main room to do careful readings of high impact topics like extreme weather and carbon capture. And in both of those, we were able to see kind of public knowledge problems on those articles that you would not otherwise be aware of. So kind of an expert conversation and recording it might be a lightweight way for you to organize especially in the COVID context. So I encourage you to think about that. And roughly this is the timeline for the next 2 to 3 months. And Z, we're gonna have the conversation in a moment. This is only about 10 more minutes or 2 more minutes of me talking. And so, yeah, this is what we're looking at. We're encouraging communities to organize from now through June, but the main challenge is going to be running April 15 to May 15. And we are working with the Rapid Grants team at the foundation to make sure Rapid Grants are available to you during the next about month and a half for these events. And also Wiki Loves Earth is exploring supporting this theme. So there might be opportunities there if you're more interested in photography. So this is where we want to start conversation. Really, do you need help? Our team can help you apply for Rapid Grants, kind of think about identifying topics or conversations that might be appropriate for your community, and we can also provide mentoring and support. Also, I want to point you at this great handbook Wikimedia Argentina did for talking about human rights topics in your local context and planning for it.